29th, 2025. We are halfway through the new moon. Got I guess technically speaking, it's still a crescent, but 50% through. I hope everybody has been well. God, it's been so rainy in Charlotte, guys. We're not battling companies like Reflect Orbital or battling nature, am I right? So, just to clue you in on what I've been up to for the last week since we last spoke, a whole lot of rain. That's what's been going on. So, I have indeed not been able to break out the scopes. I went out this morning and I pulled the cover off of my pier just to check and see where my desiccant level was at, because, you know, obviously with it raining, there's going to be more humidity in the air. And luckily for me, they're not all green yet. So got a couple more rain cycles before I have to completely reset that. That was actually the second recording of the intro that I had to do because I messed up on the mixer. I pretty much never do that anymore. I usually pretty handily nail that on the first go around, but the sound for the countdown actually wrapped around a second time, and I said, darn it, I messed it up. So I had to stop and restart things. So if you are a longtime listener of the show, you may know that when we originally started recording the Astrocast, it sounded a lot different than it does today. So when we started with episode 1, I actually was recording via just a USB microphone. It was the Yeti Nano, which I still have. I still have that microphone and I still love and cherish it. And it works great as a backup mic. And if anyone is ever thinking about getting into podcasting, I would highly recommend it as a great way to get started for an affordable entry into the world of microphones. But just like anything, you know, you got your high end and your low end, and that's probably on the lower end of, obviously not the low end. You can get some really cheap microphones, but I would not recommend anyone do that. Just like anything in life, to me, quality is always better than quantity. But that being said, after using that for the first few months of the show, I had one episode where we had a whole lot of like pops and clicks and general audio problems. And I realized after the fact that it was the USB interface that was giving me trouble. And I said, man, I cannot let that happen again. So I finally invested kind of my first bit of money into the show when I got the Rodecaster Duo mixer interface, which allowed for an XLR connection, which XLR is kind of like the audio standard for, you know, music, podcast, any kind of recording that you do, you're going to use XLR. It's a balanced signal that gives you a much more clean signal than you would get with something like USB. And I love the Rodecaster Duo. It has been phenomenal. And I actually bought the pod mic to go with it, which is the microphone that is very affordable, but, you know, very good quality that Rode sells alongside its Podcaster series of mixers. And that was the setup for the last, you know, year and a half. It's been working very, very great. But like all things, we are evolving, and I, you know, took a long, hard look at the show over the last few weeks, and I was listening back on Swan Song in particular. And there are times when I really can't isolate the sound quite as well as I would like to. That is not the pod mic's fault, to be clear. That's really on my end for not having a sound treated room. And there's probably a lot of things that I could do to help that situation, but I don't have my permanent area set up yet. So until I'm out in my garage / office / studio, I can't really set up permanent things like, you know, sound barriers and sound dampening on the walls and these sorts of things. So in order to get the desired outcome, my real option available to me was to look at microphones that are very good at capturing audio and, really blocking out all that outside noise like parrots whistling and dogs barking and, heaters cutting on and off and fans and all that. And don't get me wrong, I absolutely love when Zach makes his guest appearances on the show, and I'm sure he still will from time to time. I don't care how good of a microphone you have. That bird is loud. So when he wants to be on, he's going to be on. But we were able to upgrade to a new microphone, which is the Shure SM7B, which is just a absolute legend in the podcast and just music and vocals category for microphones. You may not know it by name, but you have absolutely heard it if you've been listening to music or podcasts for any amount of time. It's kind of the gold standard for podcasts. So happy to be on it. I hope that it sounds good. It certainly should sound good. I did a couple of quick tests before hitting the record button. I'm sure I'll get it dialed in over the next few weeks and get it exactly how I like it. I'm kind of going with just a bass roll off and out of the box settings for the most part for this first week's episode, but I will tune it and dial it in a little bit more over the coming weeks. So in astronomy news, Comet Lemon and Comet Swan. A lot of you guys have sent in photos. Thank you so much for sending them in. Beautiful images that a lot of the listeners have gotten of these awesome rare comets. And I'm just so upset that I haven't had a chance to see them because I'm such a big comet hunter and generally love tracking them down, whether that means, waking up at 2:00 in the morning and driving a few hours to a dark sky location so I can track it for 1 hour before sunrise, or, doing the same thing in the evening skies. I'm usually pretty good about tracking them down, but man, these clouds have just not cooperated at all. So I think I'm a little bit of an honorary Brit this month in that I talked to some of our listeners in the UK, and they were complaining about the overall cloudiness and dreariness that they have been dealing with and unable to view Comet Lemon and Swan. And I get it. Believe me, I know how it is. That it is unfortunate, but it's a part of being a astronomer, and it's something that we all have to deal with. We cannot control the weather, and I am okay with that. As long as, humans do control what they can control. Like we talked about last week, there was a lot of feedback that we got on the Reflect Orbital piece that I discussed last week. I got a lot of really good feedback. I got a lot of good suggestions from listeners. A few people wrote in to talk about potentially, reaching out to local legislators and state representatives, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know that I will personally be doing that yet. I'm looking into some other options as well. I do hope that a lot of you will at least write them a letter and, tell them your feelings on the situation. And by all means, if you have suggestions, please feel free to send them my way. Rue@theastrocast.com. I'm all ears. I love hearing about it. But I do worry that, like I say, even if we were to do something legally here, that maybe they would just go to another country and launch there. So I don't know. That being said, somebody did point out to me that, I want to believe that not a lot of people would tolerate seeing absurdly bright things flying through the night sky every night for hours at a time, especially if it's thousands and thousands of them as they're planning to do. So you would like to think that we would be able to come together as humans and say, okay, we're not going to do that. But again, if there's money involved, people are greedy. So we will have to wait and see. I certainly hope that I'm wrong on that. But I just don't know. But thank you to everyone who wrote in and, gave a little bit of feedback on last week's show. I definitely do appreciate that very, very much. And if I hear anything else about the situation, I will certainly keep you guys posted on it. So, in the meantime, why don't we talk about something a little bit more fun and enjoyable? So, you guys probably know, if you're longtime listeners of the show, that I use GPT for a lot of mundane, work related tasks, though I'm very, very, very anti AI when it comes to anything artistic or human centric. I don't have any problem with it solving problems for us, in the same way that a calculator would solve equations for us. I have no problem with, GPT solving problems that I could otherwise, figure out if I had 10 hours to sit down with a notebook and a pen and, just write it all out. That said, I have used GPT in the past. And if you guys don't know, by some chance, GPT is an AI application. There's a million of them out there. You can, insert Grok or Gemini or whatever it is that you may or may not like to use. Just for me, I use GPT. But anyway, I was talking to a friend of the show, Parrish, who has actually been on the show. If you listen to the first Light episode from September, you can hear from him. And he was telling me about some ways that he employs ChatGPT in his Astro workflow. And I thought it would be kind of cool to share some of the ways in which he employs these tools. And then I also had a couple of ideas that I also want to explore and haven't had a chance to explore yet, unfortunately, because it's been so darn cloudy here for the last 2 weeks, cloudy and rainy. I'm actually looking outside right now and it's still raining. It's been raining for like 4 days straight this week. So just nonstop rain. But in any case, so the first thing that he suggested doing is to essentially start up a new project in GPT. And you'll probably want to do this from your desktop computer. You can do it from mobile, don't get me wrong, but it might be a little bit easier to do it from your desktop computer just because you'll have access to your full keyboard and maybe a 10 key if you have a lot of numbers to type in like I did. Open up a new project and call it astrophotography. And the first thing you want to do is just tell the AI bot that, you are an astronomer and an astrophotographer, and you want to tell it all about the types of astronomy and astrophotography gear that you have so it can help you plan sessions and come up with ideas for targets to shoot and interesting new ways to use your gear. And I say that because it can legitimately come up with some interesting new ways for you to shoot your gear and interesting ways for you to maybe frame up shots that you had not thought about before, or maybe come up with an interesting idea for a project like a mosaic, or maybe you frame up a super wide shot and then within that super wide shot, you do lots of zoomed in shots with whatever scope you have that has a deeper view into space. Anyway, if anyone can figure it out, it's these AI bots. They're very, very good at it. So we were talking about this, and basically what you want to do is list out piece by piece every single piece of kit that you have. So, if you've only got one rig, great. That makes it a lot quicker. But if you've got a lot of different rigs or a lot of different gear, that's even better because it will allow for GPT to perhaps combine those different pieces of gear in ways that you might not think of off the top of your head, particularly if you're like looking for a target to frame up that would fill up a frame nicely on a night when maybe you've already kind of shot everything that's occurred to you. Go ask GPT for something to shoot. And you can even say, I've already shot, the North American Nebula, the Eastern and Western Veil. I've already shot Rho. I've already shot this, that, and the third. What is something else I can shoot? And then it can give you ideas for targets. Now, going further beyond that, you can localize the session quite a bit. And this is where it starts to really get interesting. But before we get there, what you'll want to do is actually first, create the bot and tell it about all of the equipment that you have. So just to give you an idea, I went ahead and pulled up the history from mine. So I can tell you the prompts that I gave it, and then you can kind of edit my prompt to fit your needs however you see fit. And if you've never used GPT before, it's as easy as going to Google and typing in Chat GPT. I believe let me get the actual web address for you. Sorry, it's chatgpt.com. So it's just when you type it in, sometimes it takes you to chat.openai.com. But you will also want to make sure that you sign in. It's really important that you sign in because you're going to want it to be able to remember the things that you tell it and to be able to have persistent sessions. And that's really key here because you don't want to have to start over telling it all the gear that you have every single time that you want to, bring up GPT to ask it a question about something to shoot that night. So once you get logged in, using your Google account, or if you want to just create your own account using your email address, you can do that as well. And I'll also point out you can do this all for free. You do not have to have the paid version. I do have the paid version, but that's because I use it for work and a bunch of other things, and it just makes sense for me to have that. But anyway, once you get it all set up and logged in, on the left-hand side, you'll see projects, and you can just click on the plus sign where it says new project there. And the initial prompt that I provided states, "You are my astrophotography assistant. I will be telling you all the various gear that I have collected over the years, including cameras, telescopes, mounts, filters, etc., as well as where I am located and what I want to shoot. And then you will give me ideas for targets to shoot on any given night. And also, I would love ideas for unique ways to use my gear that I may have not thought of before." You'll get a response, something along the lines of, "Great, I'll be your co-pilot, et cetera, et cetera." And then it's going to start asking you for your gear. And I would recommend that you break it up into different sections. It makes it a little bit easier. So like I started with my telescopes, and then we moved on to cameras, and then we moved on to mounts. Like, for example, on my telescopes. And, something else that's really cool about this before I actually read off the telescope prompt is you can get a lot of the specs right up front for all of your gear. So if you're ever in a situation where you're like, what was the focal length of my one scope again? And what is the effective focal length whenever I am using my 294 MC Pro on it? These are the kind of questions that all become really trivial once you have a Chat GPT bot built for your astrophotography. And I'm telling you, man, that can be extremely helpful depending on the situation that you're running into. So like for telescopes, I say, I've got a ASCAR SQA 55. I've got a Celestron C8. I also have a reducer for the C8, the 0.67 reducer. I have an SV Bony 80 ED along with a reducer. I've got a Celestron Nexstar 127 Newtonian, and I have lots of camera lenses, including a Rokinon 135 and several primes between 8 and 50 millimeters. So after that, it kind of gives me a brief summary of each one of my telescopes. And what's cool is it'll tell you the aperture of each of the scopes. It tells you its focal length. It tells you what it's ideal for. Like, for example, it says, my ASCAR is really great for large nebulae, whereas my C8 is a precision instrument for small galaxies and detailed regions of emission nebulae. And then it says the SV Bony is the great, man in the middle. And then it even tells me about the 135 and how it's a legendary astrophotography lens, et cetera, et cetera. So after that, I just fed it all of my cameras. We've got 5 different cameras at the Astrocast. So 294, 585, the recently added 2600, and then the trusty R5 and R7. What I really loved about this is it immediately returned not only the size of the pixels for each of these cameras, but also the size of the sensor. So like on the 294, 4.63 UM, and forgive me, I don't know if that's pronounced UM. I always say UM pixels, and a micro four thirds sensor. The 585 is 2.9 UM pixels with a 1/1.2 inch sensor. The 2600 obviously has 3.76 UM pixels. It's an APS-C size sensor. The R7 is APS-C, and then obviously the R5 is full frame. So then, just with those two quick prompts, I could say, okay, tell me what targets I could shoot by combining the 585 with the SV-Bony 80ED. And it could spit out a whole bunch of different targets for me. And if I was, let's say, planning ahead for a dark sky trip that I was going to take next May when I normally take my dark sky trips, I could say, I'm going to be in this location in May. It's at X longitude. In fact, you don't even got to tell it what the longitude is. You could just say, I'm going to be in, I don't know, San Pedro de Atacama in May. Please tell me what the longitude is there, and then tell me what will be, good targets for me to hit while I am there during this time frame. And it'll sort everything out for you. It'll tell you the exact degree that you're at, the moon cycle, you name it, you've got it. So it really is great. Obviously, it can tell you which mounts will work best with which scopes. Obviously, that's stuff that you probably already know. But my point is you can use this as just an excellent reference and resource for everything in your kit. And, once you get deep enough into astronomy and astrophotography, you will undoubtedly run into times where you're like, I'm not really sure what I want to shoot tonight because I've already kind of shot all of the, big, well-known targets in the area. So what's next? And when you get there, this is definitely something worth doing. So now, what I stated earlier before we got on about adding in the specific lenses and cameras and everything is how you can really localize this to the specific area that you're in. Now, I do know this is a feature that is available in applications like Nina and any of your planetarium suite softwares, but it's not truly automated as far as I know. And I could be wrong about that because it's been a long time since I've played with it. So if I'm dead wrong on that, by all means, shoot me an email and let me know, or drop by the Facebook and just leave a comment. Anyway, what you can do, which I think is just super cool and actually asks to verify, you can essentially go out to your yard and take 8 photos. So think all cardinal directions plus diagonals, north, south, east, west, northeast, southeast, southwest, northwest, etc. And then what you want to do is make note of which direction each photo is. So like take the first picture north, take the second picture northeast. Even better if you can overlay a compass on your phone screen, but that's a little bit more complicated than it needs to be. You don't have to do that. But you do want to make note of the exact time that you take those 8 photos. And then what you're going to do is actually email them over to yourself. Or if you've got GPT on your phone, you can just pull out your phone, open up your project folder that we created earlier, and then upload those 8 photos and say, okay, this is my yard or your dark sky location or your astronomy club, wherever it is, tell it the location and tell them the city that you're in and say, I took these photos at this time, and you do want to be exact with the time, because what it's going to do is it's actually going to plate solve based on the brighter stars and constellations that are available in the shot. And then it will actually mask your tree line in its own notes. And that way it will be able to be precise and remember exactly what is and is not available in your area. And in fact, after talking with Parrish about this, it can actually give you plan files for ASI Air or Nina, whatever it is that you like to use. And it will spit out a JSON file for you, or JSON file, which is essentially, an astrophotography plan file for you, that can, avoid anything that is in the horizon. And, if you take that to its natural conclusion, you could plan out, a month's worth of sessions in advance and have them even automatically run if you're using Nina, or ASI Air, depending on how far you want to go. I'm not sure how you do that in ASI Air, but you could certainly do it in Nina. But yeah, it can actually spit out the JSON files for you, plan them, and know what your yard can and cannot see, which is super duper cool. Another thing that he mentioned is you can actually upload your guiding logs directly to GPT, and it can analyze those and then give you recommendations on what you can do to actually improve your guiding, which is super cool. So yeah, like a lot of different things that you can do. And I mean, it starts super simple, and then it can get just as deep as you want. I can tell you the first time I entered my info in, some of the most basic things that just didn't occur to me, as far as like, why not use this filter on this target? Like, it just like head smacking easy stuff, but it just didn't occur to me before. And if you don't, frequent an astronomy club and don't constantly have people around you to bounce ideas off, this is essentially another expert, quote unquote, that you can bounce ideas off. Now, obviously, AIs are not perfect and they can make mistakes. So take everything with a grain of salt, and always be aware that they can hallucinate and make mistakes. And if you're going to, feed it a plan that GPT gives you, make sure you check everything and make sure, that something's not going to go below the horizon if you just leave your telescope alone all night. So do your homework, obviously, but it appears to be a extremely useful tool for us astronomers and astrophotographers. And I'm certainly going to start using it a lot more. I'm particularly excited about using it for dark sky trips, like letting it know exactly where I'm going and when I'm going, and being able to really plan for awesome shoots well in advance before I get out there, knowing exactly which gear I'm going to use and which target I'm going to go to. I mean, you can even find out, what the weather and patterns are like at any given time during that time of the year and the place that you're going to. So you can really go as deep as you want to with this. The options are limitless. They're all there. They're just waiting on you. So definitely give it a try. Let me know what you think. Drop a comment on the Astrocast Facebook page. I'd love to hear from you. We've had a whole lot more interaction on the social media pages as of late, and I've really, really enjoyed that. It's so cool getting to talk with other people. If you want to talk with us on the regular, obviously, please feel free to join the Astrocast Patreon and then become a member of the members only Discord, where we're always talking every day. So jump in and say what's up as soon as you get a chance. But yeah, definitely check out GPT, start your astrophotography project within, and let me know how it goes, because man, I have been really, really impressed with it so far, and I haven't even really gotten a chance to get out and shoot since I input all of my gear into it. So I'm super excited at what the possibilities could be. It's really fun too. Like if you're just bored and it's a cloudy night, like just open it up and start asking questions about your gear? What could I do to, improve this shot? You can even upload photos and say, what could I do to bring out more nebulosity in this region? And you can get, some really good ideas. It's going to go search the whole internet and do what you would otherwise do, right? Search Reddit and look through all those comments, but it can do it a lot faster than you'd be able to. So I definitely like it for things like that. Again, that's the kind of things that I could do if I had unlimited time, but I don't. And it's not really something creative. I mean, I guess you could argue picking a target is somewhat creative, but every target has been shot except for those that have not been discovered. And GPT has no way of, well, as of yet, has no way of telling you what targets have not been discovered yet and to go shoot them. So I don't look at it as, inferring upon any human artistic tendencies or anything of that nature. So go check it out. Let me know what you think. And I definitely hope you enjoy it as much as I have. Big thank you to Parrish for the idea. I knew I was going to want to talk about this as soon as he brought it up, because once he mentioned the JSON files, I was just like, oh man, that is genius. Why didn't I think of that? Because I did have an astrophotography project in my GPT for the longest time, but I didn't mess with it too often. But then, like, when I realized it could mask my yard for me with a group of photos and then, feed out actual astrophotography plans for the night, man, oh man, that just opens up so many different possibilities. So I'm super excited to see what all I can come up with. So switching gears a little bit, there's a kind of hilarious situation that has happened on the astrophotography community Facebook pages in the past few weeks. Oftentimes you'll get people who are extremely cocky on these pages and, I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread, yada, yada, yada. And, God help these people, because generally their work is not that great. I try to be humble with my stuff. I know it's not the greatest work out there. Even something that I'm genuinely really proud of, I'm not going to sit out there and hold it out like this is the greatest artwork ever. Like I did a photo of the Pleiades that we'll talk about in a little bit that, I posted it and then the next day I realized how much I hated it. So go figure. But in any case, he's become a little bit of a meme on some of these pages, to the point where people are kind of like repeating a couple of the things that he said. And let me just read his post to you first, and then we can talk about it a little bit. So he posted this in the public forum. I'm just going to use his first name because I don't want to dox the guy, but we'll just call him, you know what? I won't even use his first name because, yeah, we'll call the guy Raj. How about that? Like Roger, but we'll call him Raj. Not learning any longer, but I'm here to help those that are. Please don't PM me questions. Ask here so other can learn from the Q&A as well. I'm a world-known portrait photographer, retired, and I was burnt out on photography. Always loved astro and wanted to try it. I drove in hard for 7 years, shot everything in my skies, and nothing left. So I started selling things off last year. Now I'm into wildlife, but still enjoy helping those who are interested. I do not, in quotes for some reason, do the norm, whatever that means. I learned from the groups, but 2 years in, I learned that most of what is being taught is wrong. So I made my own path, which allowed me to get far more done in very little time. Alas, in all caps, but making me lose interest, for there was nothing else to achieve. There's nothing else for him to achieve in astrophotography. How about that? Best things I learned? 1, do not buy or use PixInsight. It's garbage. 2, I stopped using darks, biots, and flats. They're a waste of time. 3, I moved from an f8 stop to an f2.2 scope. More targets per night. Ooh, very clever. 4. Full frame camera hides a lot of sins. I tried all the software out there and ended up with Nina. But ASI Air is great too. Astropixel processor, Photoshop. I have an old video of my workflow, and that's kind of the end of the post. So in his post, he infers twice that he has, quote unquote, finished astrophotography. I don't know. It's kind of like those people who say they finished Netflix, whatever that means. I don't think anyone could ever finish astrophotography. I mean, even if you did somehow shoot every major target that was out there, you couldn't possibly believe that all of your shots are so great that you don't ever need to revisit one of them ever again, right? Nobody could be that full of themselves, could they? I think this guy might just be. So, he keeps getting memed. So people will post like these clearly garbage photos of their pictures where I think they're like messing them up on purpose, or maybe they're going out and getting their very first photo that they've ever taken. And they're like, I just finished astrophotography. Don't PM me asking how to do it. And PixInsight is garbage. So it cracked me up. I think it's hilarious, but it's hard to believe that people like this are actually out there, that are so full of themselves and just, have never, ever had a slice of humble pie in their life, apparently, to refer to yourself as a world-renowned portrait photographer. Like, my goodness, I've never heard of the guy, I don't know. When I think like world-renowned portrait photographer, Annie Leibovitz comes to mind, but Raj sure doesn't. He wouldn't for you either, believe me. His suggestion not to buy PixInsight because it's quote unquote garbage is just patently absurd. It's not garbage. It's actually a fantastic tool. It is difficult to learn. Yeah, absolutely. But again, this guy says in his own post that he, quote, does not do the norm. And usually when normal practices are established in any field of study or hobby, it's because it is found that they work. We do the same thing with the scientific method. When something works consistently and gets the same results over and over again, we use that until something better comes along. So this guy saying, don't bother with calibration frames because they're a waste of time is just silly, because they're not a waste of time if you have dust on your lens and then you go to stretch your image and that dust blot shows up. Then it seems like it was very much a great use of time. And then full frame camera hides a lot of sins. I don't even know what to make of that. Because there are full frame cameras that are 15 megapixels, and then there are full frame cameras that are 60 megapixels. And then I think it would also depend on the effective focal length of the lens or telescope that you are connecting it to. It would depend very much on the mount that you're using. And when you say sins, what are you talking about? Like blurry stars? Like, he doesn't really elaborate on these things. And then when he says he moved from an f8 to an f2.2 scope, moving to a faster scope will indeed allow you to gather data much faster. But he says more targets, plural, per night. I think when most people get, really into astrophotography and they're, trying to make great images, they're not going to hit multiple targets in one night. So I'm not even sure what he's inferring with that. So, yeah, I don't know. It's really funny. If you want to find the post yourself and see him get absolutely dragged in the comments. You can go to the Learning Astrophotography page. Like I say, I'm not going to give the guy's name out just because I don't want to dox him. I'm not that kind of person. But old Raj, man, he is just a really, really humble guy. And he's finished astrophotography, apparently. So good for him. All right. So other thing I wanted to talk about with you guys was my M45 project that I worked on. So I talked about it last week and I believe the week before on the show as well. I put quite a bit of time into a project recently. It was honestly the biggest project that I've undertaken yet. I put 45 hours in total into M45. And the goal was to get all of the IFN dust in the region around the Pleiades to really come out strong, you know, with a super long exposure being the way that it was. And unfortunately, I don't think I succeeded at that. Now, I will say, I think the image itself is pretty good. The first time I processed it, I overdid it a bit, kind of rookie mistake. I was sitting here, it was late at night and I was really tired and I was just kind of playing around and I went a little bit hard in Lightroom after I had finished in PixInsight, you know, messing with sliders. I went back the next day and, you know, redid it from scratch in PixInsight and I was a lot happier with the result. But I still didn't have the IFN that I was kind of expecting to get at 45 hours. And I'm not too surprised by it. And I wanted to talk about this specifically, because it's part of, how do I put this? I have been working with, James from Leviathan Optical. He was kind enough to send over his Spectral Pro filter from his new company. Great filter, by the way. Has done a phenomenal job with every target that I pointed it at. And early on, when I started this project, he messaged me and he said, "Hey, Chris, FYI, you might not want to use the Spectral Pro for all of your integration time because it can have a difficult time in, you know, highly light polluted areas with picking up IFN." My bad. I didn't hear him. I'll own up to it. I kind of just ignored it and kept imaging because I think at that point I was already a good 15 hours in and I was like, nah, let's see what happens. Not the end of the world. I mean, you know, not a big deal. But as it turns out, he wasn't lying. So it does indeed have a little bit of a difficult time picking up that really fine, very faint dust that IFN, you know, sets behind the Pleiades and lots of other targets. And there is a reason for that. And we talked about it a good bit via email. So I sent him the finished photos, both the ugly one that I did the first time and then the slightly better one that I did the second time. And he responded and I really agreed with what he had to say. And I think it's a fine balance with a light pollution filter because obviously you only want to let in certain bands of light and you got to be very careful about making those bands too wide or too narrow. And it's a balancing act, right? Because if you make them too narrow, then you might start losing things like IFN. But if you widen them out too much to bring things like IFN in, then you also can bring in light pollution. So at the end of the day, this was really a trade-off that had to be made. It was a decision that had to be made. Do we want to cut it to where the majority of, you know, nebula emission targets, you know, your Heart Nebula, Soul Nebula, Orion, you know, all of your big popular nebula, if you will, are going to work really, really well with this filter, with the understanding that some of the really faint dust from things like, IFN and the Pleiades might not come through as well. And ultimately, I think he made the right call on that. I can't say what I would have done in that situation. But I think the results kind of speak for themselves on my Heart Nebula photo. If you've seen that one, that is by far the best Heart Nebula photo that I've ever done. And I did that in one night with the Spectral Pro. So, I'm just letting everybody know, because I have been using this filter for a couple of months now, and I've talked with James a lot. No money has been exchanged, to be clear. No products, no money, no nothing. We're just sharing data. You know what I mean? He's asking me for feedback, and I'm giving him my honest feedback as best I can. And James, if you're listening to this, I owe you an email response. You sent me a really long, great email, and I am planning on responding to it, but I'll get to it this weekend, I promise. Just real busy. But anyway, I wanted to share that with you guys just in case. I still very, very, very much recommend the Spectral Pro. I think for the vast majority of targets that you're going to be going after from light polluted skies, you are going to be more than happy with it. I think I might be just a little bit greedy trying to go after IFN with a light pollution filter on from Bortle 7 skies. Like, filters can work wonders. Don't get me wrong, particularly something like a Leviathan Spectral Pro. It's incredible what it can do from my terribly lit skies here in Charlotte. But those really faint details of that really faint dust in the Milky Way, there's no substitute for dark skies for stuff like that. And I'm telling you that because if you are trying to go for, IFN dust, dark nebula, etc., you would be doing yourself a huge favor by taking a little bit of time and driving somewhere dark enough to actually capture it. Because I think if you factored in all of the time that you spent on the project, even adding in a few hours of drive, I know for sure that if I were in a truly dark sky location, like, Bortle 3 or better, that I probably could have gotten all of that IFN in 2 nights instead of, 45 hours worth of data that I was looking for. And I want to be clear, I did get some of the IFN. It's not that I didn't get any of it. It's just that I didn't get what I would have expected to have gotten after, a week's worth of imaging nights. But anyway, I just wanted to share that with you guys because we had talked about the Leviathan quite a bit over the last few weeks, and I wanted to give you an update on it. Again, still definitely recommend it. I still think it is by far the best light pollution filter that there is for one-shot color cameras. But if you're, looking to shoot IFN specifically, you probably still want to head to a dark sky site. There's never going to be any substitute for dark skies when it comes to those really faint and fine details in astronomy. And honestly, that's probably how it should be. It makes those trips so much more special, right? Like, I remember the first time I made a trip with a very, very good friend of mine to our favorite dark sky location. And I was able to see the dark nebulosity inside of Rho for the first time. That part, the really, I don't know, it almost looks like a squid. That's what I always think of. That's leading into the 4-colored area from the side of the Milky Way. The first time that I actually saw that come through on a sub with my own eyes, it really blew my mind. And I was like, man, oh man, now these are dark skies. And I think there's something to be said for not being able to do that from anywhere in the world. And don't get me wrong, I would love for us to be able to do that from anywhere in the world, but I would want it to be because it's Bortle 3 or less everywhere, not because we're able to use technology to cut through all of that garbage in our atmosphere. So, a long rambling way of saying, make sure that you make a trip to your dark sky site if you haven't this year. I have definitely got the itch as of late. I haven't been able to scratch it. I thought I was going to be able to a couple of weeks ago, but it didn't pan out with the weather. Planning on, getting somewhere dark in the very near future, hopefully to shoot Orion, but time will tell and we shall see. So a recommendation for this week. Oh, buddy, I've got one for you. This is a show that I have heard about for a long time, and I was extremely skeptical going in, as I usually am for most shows that are in this genre. But man, oh man, after watching the first episode, I was really blown away. I got to say the quality is definitely there, and I cannot wait for the second episode to come out. It's available on HBO Max. Hopefully you have access to that. If you don't, maybe get a free trial. But you might want to wait a little while because the show I'm referring to, they're doing the thing where they only drop one episode every week. And I'm not sure how many episodes in total it's going to be. It is a horror. Are you starting to get it yet? Big Stephen King fan, HBO, et cetera, et cetera. It's Welcome to Derry is the show. So this is a prequel to It, which obviously has had a couple of movies in the last decade and has had a big moment in pop culture. HBO kind of seized on that and decided to do a prequel. And I got to say, man, they have done a really, really good job with it. I'm a sucker for like period pieces. Anytime you have something like, set in the 50s or 60s or even older than that in the 1800s. Like I love costumes and, all these types of things. And yes, I am a straight cis male who's happily married. Don't make fun of me. I really dig it when you can recreate an environment like the 1960s and make it look so authentic. I don't know. The production must be crazy difficult on a show like that. And I just have a lot of admiration for the teams that are able to pull these things off. So highly, highly, highly recommend it. Not only are the costumes and everything super cool, but the actual story is really good. So they completely had me hooked. There was a huge twist, like right in the very first episode that I was not expecting at all. Great acting, even from the kids on the show, who obviously play a very, very large role. So I can't recommend it enough. I think the next episode is going to come out on Friday. So if you're listening to this on Wednesday, you can watch the first episode tonight or tomorrow, and then tune in Friday for the next episode. So very much am enjoying that. I'm hoping there will be a lot more episodes, but I guess we'll find out soon enough. I'm going to throw in a bonus one for you while we're at it, since we're on the HBO Max app. You probably heard of this one. It's been very much in the popular culture lexicon, but Weapons is another one that's really, really good. I don't know if I would necessarily call it a horror movie. It certainly has its very spooky moments. It's very tense at certain points. I would call it maybe more of like a thriller / horror film, perhaps, but it's very unique. I will give it that, a very unique premise with a very original story, which is always super refreshing to see. And it definitely will give you the creeps. Like it gave me the creeps big time watching it. So I definitely can recommend that one to you as well. So if you get a chance, definitely check that one out. You only got a few more days of spooky season left before we turn our eyes to Thanksgiving season, which will be here before you know it. We're all preparing to make our turkeys in North America. So definitely enjoy the rest of this Halloween season while you can. And if you've got kids, I certainly hope that they get nice, clear weather on Friday for trick-or-treating. It's supposed to clear up here in Charlotte for Friday. That's what we're hoping anyway, so the kids can go out and all have a good time. So, guys, that is going to do it for this week's episode. I greatly appreciate you sitting down for an hour with me. If you haven't already, definitely check out the Facebook page, drop by and leave a comment, give us a follow over there. We're getting those numbers up. I want to continue growing the social media page because that's a great way for us to spread the word of the Astrocast to the masses. And like I said, if you'd like to say hello to me on a regular basis, please feel free to drop us a line by joining the members only Discord. You can go to patreon.com/the Astrocast, and you can always reach me by email. If you have a question, comment, concern, anything like that, just email me ru@theastrocast.com. I know we got a lot of new listeners. I know I've gotten some emails from some of you guys, and I just want to say hello to all of our new listeners that have come on board in recent months. Greatly appreciate having you guys here. The show continues to grow, and I couldn't do it without you. It stays ad-free because of your support, and that will continue into the future. So thank you so much for tuning in to the Astrocast this week. I am your host, Ru, and as always, clear skies.